We're excited, and hopefully this can be helpful, and we can have some collaboration and chat through some ideas together. So, quick, just bios on us. We won't read through it, but both Blake and I have been at Kizik for almost 5 years now. And big shout, Alex is in here.
Right here in the
Alex
front.
Brought us over to Kizik, and we're forever grateful for him and working with him.
And if you don't know him, go talk to him. He'll change your life.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, as you guys know, the session title, we wanted to talk about the balance that brands face with building a brand while also driving revenue, and kind of the performance angle that a lot of brands, including us, have struggled with, and I think have found some success. And so we want to try and share a little bit of knowledge that with you. And fortunate enough timing, we actually just launched a big brand campaign, or a brand platform, somewhat of a brand refresh on Monday. So this is really fresh in our minds and good timing. So you'll probably see some of that filter out over time. Yeah, we're excited about that. So go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, as Brett mentioned, the reason I'm still sitting down is I'm still recovering from the last year of all the stuff we've been working on. So how many of you have heard of Kizik before? Well, not enough hands, but you sure soon will. Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate everyone being here, and we're excited to share maybe some wisdom with you. So with Kizik, we believe that life is most interesting in motion. We enable our customers to move frictionlessly through life, to go, do, see, explore, to find the magic in motion. And with that is really trying to connect our consumers, and there's a little play with our product. So if you've heard of us, Kizik, you just step into the shoes, and Brett will talk a little bit more about this, and really trying to connect to consumers to really see more of an aspirational view of, it's not just a product, it's more than that, and really trying to find the aspirations in the everyday for them to go see the world and go and do.
Yeah, I mean, so just as a refresher, this is kind of how Kizik's work. I know this is pretty fast, but really you can step into our shoes. They fit like a regular shoe. You can lace them up once, and you really don't have to touch them again. And as Blake said, we feel like our product enables people to go and kind of that jolt to go and see and do and get more out of life, and explore, and really we've done a lot of work in consumer research to really find that people are really looking for, or what love about Kizik is that spark that it gives them in their life, and this freedom to go and explore, which is really cool. It's cool to see people talk about your product in a way that, beyond just the functional benefit of, hey, I don't have to bend over and tie my shoes, but I actually can have a little bit of, we call it the aha moment, where people put them on and you're like, that just feels good, right? And you kind of have that smile on your face as you go out the door each day, and that's really what we'll talk about, some of that today on the brand side, and how we really tried to emulate that and then balance that as we try and sell shoes, right? So
yes, so this is kind of the age-old question of brand versus performance, and it's kind of the chicken or the egg kind of story. And I think traditionally with most D2C brands specifically, or CPG companies, you really have to find kind of this, if you're a brand builder or if you're a performance marketer, of course, there's kind of, there's going to have to be some trade-offs. There's going to have to be some balance to, and for our case was really, finding that really specific, and we'll talk about this a little bit deeper, but really trying to find that product market fit, trying to find the consumers, trying to find all these things. We were going to go through these things of how do you build a brand, but also have revenue in mind? How do you have profitability in mind? And how do you just survive to the next gate? So you can go to the next one.
Yeah, and so I think, these are just, everyone throws out, I think, brand pretty loosely, and it can mean a lot of different things. This is just a couple things that, as we look at brand versus performance, just ways that you can articulate it, or how we think about it, I guess. So I won't read through all of these, but you can kind of see how there's some juxtaposition here, and then how some of these overlap. But I think in what we've seen is there's sometimes a short-term view on performance marketing and a long-term view with brand, right? And I don't believe that's the case. I think you can do both, and I think you can do both really well. And we've seen that through our career. And but at least this is kind of generally just to level set and how people may look at brand and performance together. And yeah, go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, so traditionally, I think for me, as coming from more of the brand creative side, was always like, hey, we got to find our why. We have to find out, before we can preach the gospel, we need to have the spoken word first. And I think, when Alex brought Brett and I on in the early, almost 5 years ago, it kind of shifted my mindset a little bit to look at, what are we trying to do? And I think part of that was like trying to find that connection of the product market fit, trying to find those consumers, but at the same time, as we've gone along this journey at Kizik, is really trying to identify why should people care? What's more than, how do we get past just the product? How do we tell more stories that are emotionally enriching? How do we connect this and brand, and how do we connect brand marketing and performance together? And I think, to me, it shouldn't be this tug of war where you're both going this opposite ways, but how do you find the synergy kind of between those things? Trust me, it is not easy. It is very difficult to really find that balance between kind of the performance side, but also the brand side. And I think Brett and I have done a pretty good job not clawing each other's eyes out of like, this shouldn't be this way, we should do this, we should do that. But I think looking at the really 30,000-foot view is like, what's going to get Kizik to the next stage? We're always looking at milestones to say like, okay, we actually found a little niche here and it did really well, let's add to it. How do we modify it? How do we get our products better? How do we communicate better with our customers?
Yeah, and I think, one of the challenges that, we've all probably seen in our careers is, especially starting out on D2C first, is how do you survive, right? I mean, you can't really have a brand if you're out of business in a year. There's no way around it. And so for us, it was, when we first started, again, we were selling, maybe 5 to 10 pairs of shoes a day, and it was like, okay, how do we got salaries to pay for, we have, a lot is kind of resting on our shoulders to come and build. And so I think before you can get into building a sustainable, great brand that we all look up to, there's an element of survival. And I think that also leads to brands where it's so D2C focused first that the pendulum shifts too far, right? And you're not thinking big picture. And so I think for us, it was, okay, we gotta survive so we can thrive and have some success, and then kind of pull back the pendulum the other way and find and think more full funnel and an approach to marketing that isn't just DR and mid to bottom funnel and capturing demand, but how do we build demand and break through a lot of the noise that's out there, especially with Kizik being a brand that no one had heard of. We had new technology. We were trying to disrupt the footwear industry, billions and billions of dollars. How do we become known and put our stamp on it? But that had to come over time, and as we were able to at least prove and get product market fit, as Blake said.
Yeah, I mean, and with that, I mean, I think everyone at some point goes through each of these stages of like, okay, Kizik, we exist. We're achieving this through creativity. We're going through survival stages of like, we're trying to achieve this through direction. Now we're kind of accelerating through delegation and then coordination and then collaboration. So as we kind of go through these stages holistically, we're really trying to find, what's really going to give us a differentiator. I mean, because most people are just selling products to sell products, and if that's what you want to do, no one's stopping you. But I think most people that are aspirational enough or ambitious enough are really going to try to find ways to like I want to build a legacy. I want to build something long lasting. And to do that, you have to find ways outside of the normal trajectory to really put your stamp in the ground, because there's going to be competitors. There's going to be, I'm not going to say who they are, but there's going to be competitors about trying to do what you're doing well, because they want to tap into what Kizik is trying to do. And with that, we really have to differentiate ourselves from what matters most to customers, what matters most to building something unique and powerful that really emotionally and culturally represent them, not just through the product, but like what the product provides them.
Just quick show of hands, how many are in stage 1 or 2 right now? How about 3 and beyond? Somewhere in the middle. All right. There's this, or maybe you've been 4, and now you're back to 2 or 3, you're kind of ebbing and flowing. I know some brands are doing that right now.
Yeah, and kind of more of in each of these stages, this is kind of one of my favorite graphs by Scott Belsky from, he was the founder of 99 Behance, and I think he's actually over product, or he's at Adobe. And really looking at, when we start any new venture or anything at any stage, we're like, okay, awesome, we have clear direction, we know what we're doing. You go through it and you're like, this is hard. And then you're going through these really poignant points of like, you kind of win, you feel like you lose, you feel like you win, you feel like you lose. And I think when you're in those moments of finding these interactions, I think at times you have to remind yourself to really look at taking a step back and looking at like, no, that wasn't a failure, that was kind of just a learning curve. So when you're looking at from a far back view, you're seeing, wow, we're actually growing, we're actually doing better, we're actually learning from where we've been to where we're going. And I think that's really just looking at trying to find, we've all really felt this struggle, I think. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing in business right now, but I think everyone at some point in their business, specifically, you kind of go through these interactions throughout, each of these kind of stages as you grow and as you mature. It gets a little bit more difficult, but I think once you find yourself taking a step back, you'll really find, that things are moving, that you are progressing in a lot of ways. And kind of with this, part of our job is really to counter skepticism with catalyzing evangelization. So really, for us as Kizik, it's like, people are like, when we came on around 2019, people are like, okay, that's, I don't know who you are, but okay, cool. Oh, you can just step into your shoes. Okay, that's, that might seem a little gimmicky. So really going through these things of like, how do we create awareness? How do we give people reasons to believe? How do we facilitate trial, but then also co-create opportunity as becoming the new standard? Because I think eventually shoes are going to go this way. I don't know when fully, but I think I'm very passionate about shoes are going to be really, you're going to be able to step into your shoes no matter what. Because I think most people are going to be so used to having these type of technologies to really, evangelize to what shoes should be.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just add is I think early on, the first few years of Kizik, as I mentioned on one of the first slides, is we were kind of in this create awareness, just building a brand. We did a lot about functionality, and we found specialized segments to talk to, and from pregnancy to the elderly to those that really needed our product. And I think that was part of our survival mode, right? Of just growing and building a business that could support and build growth for those that were coming on to help build our team. And I think as we've matured, as this graph kind of shows, there's this need that, rather than our consumers going after kind of those, what I would call needs-based, or our bottom of the funnel consumers kind of in really desperate need of a product like ours, we really wanted to think bigger and more globally at scale, and that's where building a brand and finding that synergy really comes into place. And as Blake said, sets kind of that evangelism off, and people really talking about your brand. And being willing to go to bat for you. And you see that show up on social and through your repeat purchase rate and things like that. And that's a great place to be. So as Blake and I were working on this, I thought, oh man, how many times have I heard this over the last couple months? Not necessarily from Blake.
Or how many times have I said that?
Yeah. So for a show of hands, how many people have heard this in the last 30 days? Or have said it in the last 30 days? Yeah. So who's willing to share a quick example of what happened? I saw a few hands. A 30-second. Nobody? Nobody wants to call anyone out?
I can.
Yeah. What happened?
So I work for a very famous cookie company that you all probably know called Crumble, and we went through a rebrand. And I'm on the digital team, so my job is to drive revenue. And we have a very big, talented group of designers and creative people. And so that chart you showed of like performance marketing and branding, like that's Crumble, like trying to figure out that balance. And what we're trying to do is come up with fresh concepts because people have seen our cookies for years, and so we're trying to come up with new things because we think people are kind of tired of some of the stuff we've done, but we've got to make sure it's still on brand. So yeah, it's just kind of an ebb and flow, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think you see this a lot on social. We're going through the same thing as we said, have a brand refresh, and our social has been a little bit all over the place as we've been just growing and testing and moving fast. And I think as we start to dial in our brand platform and our editorial guidelines and content that fits for our brand, I mean, that's been a shift for our social team to really figure out how what they're doing fits into this brand ethos, or we kill it, right? And that's kind of a hard shift for people to have that much freedom and flexibility, then have to kind of rein it in. And one of the things I love that Blake has said is constraints constraints.
What did I say?
Creativity thrives under constraints, right? And I think that's true. I think that's what we've been preaching to our team is that, yeah, we're coming with tighter guidelines and a point of view that's at the tip of the spear that we can stamp and stand behind, but that doesn't mean that it limits your creativity. And I think that's important for people to know, especially on the performance side, is there's your brand platform and what your brand stands for, there's enough room to be creative within it if you've done it right, obviously. And I think that's what we have. And so I think that's just a natural progression that people go through. So how do you find harmony between the two? That's kind of the question that we're all trying to answer, or why we came today, right? Is like, man, I'm on the performance side, I'm on the brand side, I have these performance marketers that are always wanting me to create ugly ads because they convert. We all hear that, right? We all feel it, and truthfully, I mean, Blake can share, but I remember the first day, we walked in and Blake was on like a Lifetime plastic table, and I was like, who is this guy? He was dressed better than me, and he looked good, and then Alex was in the corner on another plastic table, and I set up my computer that I brought from home, and I was like, okay, how do we got to get this rocket ship going? And there was kind of this natural like tension that I think comes with different spectrums of performance or brand, and so, but how do we find the harmony together? And I think Blake and I, as Blake said, there's only been a few 4-letter words shared between each other, but really I think there's this idea that if you drop your ego at the door and are willing to do what's best for the business, which sometimes means letting an ad go out that isn't exactly what Blake feels 100% great about, but he has faith and trust that, let's test it and see if it works. And I think that's where finding the right people to work with and to understand that balance, which is a really, really hard balance, will make or break your company, quite frankly, because you're going to get pulled in both directions at different stages of the business, and it's all about kind of that give and take.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, it's really trying to find, removing your ego is not easy. I mean, to be honest, I think there's been days where I'm like, oh gosh, why is this, But other days it's like there's more important things when you're looking at it, or like how do we help the performance marketing team? How do we help the brand side of things to really, we're really looking at whoever has the best idea wins, and how do we do that which doesn't damage the brand in a negative way, but also how do we keep reinforcing kind of we have these things that as we've gone through this kind of rebrand we just did, is how do we look at, these, we call them kind of like editorial lenses of like, we'll ask ourselves, does it do this? Does this ad do this? Or does this social media thing do this, this, and this? And really say like, okay, if it doesn't meet this kind of criteria, it's kind of like, it's at a standstill. It's like, until we can find a way to go through these criteria to say like, okay, once we go through this, then we can kind of feel collectively as a brand and on the performance side to kind of move on it. And I think that's kind of the hardest thing, is look at like taking your personal ego out of it and looking at it through the lens of like, what do you really want to do? Do you want to build a business? Do you want to grow the business? I think it's so emotionally charged. You get so emotionally invested into it, and it's hard not to feel defensive. It's hard not to do these things. But I think where Brett and I really see eye to eye most of the time now, is really say like, what's going to be best for the business? What's going to be best for really trying to unify, ads that are working, and how do we, because advertising, you might have an ad that's up for 5 days that dies, and you might want to make some iterations. You can make changes. There's little things you can do to really help, emphasize, oh, I don't like this color of text that's on this TikTok, or, let's make sure this stuff is here. And I think there's trying to find these things of like, there's a lot of battles you could fight, but I think you have to find ways within your organization or wherever you stand to say like, does this matter? Is this going to kill us right now? So if you're at that survival stage, it does not matter. It does not matter. Honestly, as a brand person, it hurts to say that, but at the same time,
Could you say that a little louder?
The end of the day, do consumers care? No. Like the way social media and advertising is going is consumers are really like, they don't care if it's a high quality video or a lo-fi video. They just care if it's good content that they can relate to. That's all they care about. And that's all that we should really care about, is like, did we communicate? Did we relate to the consumer? Did we find some unique, creative way in to really connect with them? And so it's really challenging, but I think there are really trying to find ways to reset yourselves and like really, because you can nitpick all day long, but it's like, it's going to drive you crazy. It's one, going to drive you crazy to leave, or it's going to drive you crazy to have a toxic environment in your culture. But I think it's really trying to find those avenues as you grow, as you get to certain stages. Then you can be a little bit more maniacal. You can be a little bit more specific about, hey, when we do this, let's make sure we do these things so the rest of the team knows, whether it's through social media, whether it's through comms or PR or any other kind of, through email or whatever it might be. Really trying to find what is these common threads through each of these touch points, making sure our messaging and our, our identity and our brand kind of really stays strong.
So we have about 5 minutes. I wanted to share one of the ways that we're doing this at Kizik right now. Literally, we kicked off a 3-market test with our new brand platform. It's called Motion is Magic, and we're testing 3 select markets so we can actually have some holdout tests and see how this new creative and this new world that we're living in is actually going to resonate. And for those of you who don't know what this is called a brand arc study that actually Google allows you to do. And one of my favorite questions, or I guess responses that someone can make here that really, to me, well, let me take a step back. This can be run, a survey goes out to people digitally after seeing a piece of creative, and you can actually ask them a series of questions. And one of the questions that I ask is, after they've asked about which one of these shoe brands have you heard of, which of the following best describes how you feel about Kizik? And if you look at those options, the brand is a big part of my life. I would defend the brand no matter what. I care about the brand. I've heard of the brand. I know what the brand does or makes. That second one, I would defend the brand no matter what. means that you're building a brand, right? If someone goes out of their way and is going to show up on social, or they're willing to answer this way, you're building a brand. And for us, that's something that we want to measure as we're in a different, as we're scaling, but looking to really go globally and build a brand beyond just kind of DTC. That's something that we want to measure, is how many people are we turning into brand advocates that are going to battle for us and stand up for the brand and in turn talk about us. So this is an actionable way you can go do this. You can talk to your Google rep. They can help you set up a brand arc study. It's free. Don't tell them I said that. And you can set this up and start testing against some of your creative and campaigns that you're running today. And can we skip this one, Blake?
Yeah, you can skip it.
I know we have a couple minutes. I wanted to show this slide real quick. This is kind of where we've been. And I know a lot of this feels probably native to some of the people here. Your stuff's kind of all over the place, right? You have customer service and your CRM and brand marketing and obviously performance marketing, your PR. It kind of feels you're all kind of maybe siloed, or you're talking in different ways. And this is how we are hoping it looks for us moving forward, is there's a brand platform that really speaks to, again, who we are and what we stand for. And all of the supporting channels and business units are stemming from that. And we're all aligned, and we're all talking from the same point of view and from the same belief. And I think this is big to, again, achieving the type of scale that we're looking to go towards. So again, this is the future state of Kizik and where we're hoping to get, but we've been here. So if it feels that way, it can turn into this.
Yeah, so really this, we call it the blue thread. We're trying to make all these complex silos and how do we unify our brand platform? Because our brand platform isn't a marketing brand only thing. It's an organizational structure. It's an organizational, trying to make the organization be able to work together on the same level throughout, from international to wholesale to retail to D2C, e-com. And so really we're looking at these key frameworks of finding our purpose, of the reason why the brand exists is really to spark the freedom to go. Our values, what makes the brand different is we're driven by curiosity, we're driven by, we're hungry for experience. We see the opportunity in the known, we simplify complexities, we champion industrious optimism. Really, our mission is really to build the next great footwear brand by empowering people to live frictionless lives, fueled by the freedom of motion that hands-free gives them. And really, our key insight here is culture at large and consumers define time as an enemy. Yet when we think about time as an ally, an expansive sense of freedom flows out of life. And so our creative platform is motion is magic. And really, these are kind of the brand stories of through every type of communication, from advertising to social to anything that we're kind of putting out there, is we have these kind of editorial frameworks, our brand stories of how our products enable motion, how innovation elevates motion. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but really, and then kind of what's the output out of this is these are all kind of the actions or outputs from where these things will live. You can keep going. And really our brand foundation, our communication approach, and our outputs. You can click it one more time. And these first purpose, values, and mission are kind of the fixed assets as the brand. And then our key insights, creative platform, brand stories, and actions are kind of these fluid assets that change over time, that really adapt to where, as the creative platform is really the key impetus, but we might have a lens that we might go through, trying new types of creative or try new types of interesting things that tell our stories.
I know we're a bit. Who's in here? Supposed to be running this. Are we supposed to do some Q&A in about? Maybe we show a couple of the brand videos and then do some Q&A. So, yeah, I think just to kind of summarize, Blake, this is hopefully setting us up where we meet in the middle, right? There's room for performance, there's room for brand here, but this sets everything up so we're all aligned and we can go back and feel like we're all speaking from a source of truth. So we wanted to show you a couple creative examples of how this has come to life with some of our new creative that is fresh off the press. So we'll play some of that real quick. And if you want some of these slides later, we can share them. But so this is our brand anthem. Let's see if I can play this. And I'd consider this, I mean, Blake, you can set this up, but definitely more on the brand side, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're really just trying to emphasize, our new creative platform on within the brand of like motion is magic, and how do we really emotionally tell the story outside that extends past the product or the functionality? How do we really connecting consumers to like there's a big world, and really Kizik is really there to really help catapult you into where you want to go, where you want to see, where you want to be, and really trying to take this very more aspirational approach to where footwear should be. So
this kind of sits at the top as our brand anthem, and then we'll create cuts and versions of this that may be supported on DRTV and social, and but we have some specific creative that was built for other channels as well. But that's where this lives. Uh-oh, no sound.
A leisurely walk, a power walk. First walks, long walks, a dance, slow dance, dance like no one's watching. And guys, there are people watching. Move, move, move. Even if it's just inside your mind, you'll find that a body in motion stays in magic.
Really pretty, huh? We'll show you one more. So following the same through line of what Blake just shared, we built this one that's directly for DRTV. So this is running in our 3 select markets across social, linear, connected TV, and layers down from that. Yeah, I'm so excited this stuff's out and live. And you can see that, again, for those of you that are, I guess on both sides, you can kind of see how it shifted. There's a lot more text on screen. There's reviews. There's, things that help support from a performance angle that feels really connected to our brand anthem, but serves a different purpose and maybe moves people a little bit further down the funnel. So, in the spirit of time, that's kind of the output of a lot of hard work and a lot of taking us from survival to growth to sustainability, and then kind of reshaping the brand to come out with something like this that feels really connected, that can be expansive across channels. So I would just say, I would challenge you, wherever you're at, think about where you're at today and where you're trying to get to, but don't try and get there too fast. We've seen a lot of brands that have tried to build a world-class brand early on, and then they don't survive. Or you get so reliant on DR that you never really build something that means anything or makes people feel something. And I think that's what we're trying to go for now, is to really bring that emotion and connectivity to the brand, that again we can create those evangelists.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about this is like is it easy? No. If it was, everybody would be trying to do it. But I think at some point it's like, you know, as a performance side of things, really like, you know, CAC goes up, CPMs go up, you know, all these things go up, and you really can't control it. But it fluctuates so much. Where when you have a brand and you can have the performance side of things of, you know, you have to find out what's in your business, what's going to drive things forward for you. Is, you know, should I go performance heavy first? Should I go brand first? There's a way for people to do both, and it just doesn't mean you have to do a huge campaign like we did. But I think finding little ways to inch together instead of like, it's not a us versus them thing. And that's the beautiful thing about, you know, with Brett and I, is really looking at the alignment of, you know, they both are the yin and the yang. They're the same side of the coin, and really trying to unify those things are not easy. But I think trying to find a way where you and your teams, or you and your company, wherever you stand, really trying to find ways that you can really identify those things. So, I mean, some real quick key takeaways here are really, you know, align with your team on simple frameworks that get everyone on the same page, whether it's you and a friend starting a business or you have a team of 50 people. It's really trying to find like, how are we going to find strategic ways for us to win, so everyone has a clear point of view on where we should go, where we should be, how we should act, and how we're going to communicate with consumers. Really, the other biggest thing from my point of view is like, find product market fit. If you do not find product market fit, you do not have a business. You really have to find ways, because like when Brett and I came on, I remember Alex tried to give me a pair of shoes, and I said, nah, I'm good. I just didn't like the style, but I saw the potential of what it could be in the market, and really trying to find ways to really, like, you see the potential in your organization, really try to find ways to find consumers, and really finding ways to test, learn, and adapt fast, whether that's through ad sets, whether that's through like how you're talking to consumers, really finding interesting ways to move at the speed of light. And I think that's going to help you get more information and data to really help understand who you're going after and what products you're trying to sell. And I think the other biggest thing, obviously, is no matter what size of stage you are, talk to your customers, whether that's through brand surveys, whether that's through qual or quant surveys, really trying to find unique ways, or even like if you're a small business, go call them. If you're in Salesforce or in your Shopify or whatever, find them, call them, talk to them, really finding ways. It's not hard. You just be a human and talk to somebody. Don't have an agenda, just really trying to find ways to say, hey, I saw you bought our product. What do you think? How can we be better? And I think customers, you'd be surprised. They'd be like, wow, that meant a lot to me. I'm going to be a lifetime, advocate for this brand, even though they're small or even if they're big. Find ways to really talk to consumers. There's easy ways to do it. And I think that's really a core component to really finding that product market fit as well. And then really the biggest thing too is build a community. A brand isn't really about what you say. It's about what the consumer says. And it's hard. You want to put your stamp on the brand. You want to put your stamp on building something. But I think until you start realizing like the consumer is the one trying to evangelize your product, your brand, your company, find ways to build a community around them to things they care about emotionally. How do you build things around that are relevant to them, that says to them that, hey, I care about you, or I really relate to you, I understand you. So build a community is super strong.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we're about out of time, so thanks for coming. Hopefully you found something valuable, and please reach out to us. I know we're happy to chat over LinkedIn, and yeah, but we can do we do some questions. But thanks for being here. This was fun. Go ahead.
So, product market fit and community. What if you have a client that's like, well, yeah, we sell to these almost anarchist types, but we want to go after the spot people now. Can they do that within a brand, or do they need to split off and like have a sub brand? Can you make that much of a shift?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is for us is we didn't have time to go through the slide is, we have this pyramid of who we're going after. We have this, we call them the time empowered optimist, which is kind of our muse. This is kind of the aspirational person that we want to get to. Then we have our time sensitive striver, our core consumer. And then we have specialized segments of like people with disabilities, kids, pregnancies, seniors. There's ways to talk about that with damaging the brand. There's ways to do that. And that's the beautiful thing for me personally is like, there's not very many footwear companies that can talk about disabilities or like a lot of these sub-segments to be, to be such an emotional striking thing, because we've heard so many stories that are like, hey, I haven't been able to put on my shoes for 20 years. And I'm hearing them tell these stories and I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's amazing to see that. And I think there's ways to do that to still have that brand in there.
Yeah, and I just say for us, it's, market to the muse, sell to the masses, right? That's kind of our philosophy, and that's what this represents for us. And so a lot of our front-facing messages is to the muse, but we know that, our core and our specialized segments are really making up the bulk of our purchases. But everyone wants to buy in an aspirational manner. So, yeah.
So is the campaign you're running right now just like a market test, you were saying? Like, what are you looking at to determine success? Are you looking at sales? Are you looking like at brand metrics or both?
Yeah, quite a bit. So the reason we did it this way, one, budget, right? I mean, to go nationally with a campaign like this and hit a variety of channels from top to bottom of funnel is just really expensive. We kind of talked like it would be sprinkling a little bit of Kizik dust versus really going and trying to penetrate a market with big, strong messaging. So we chose 3 markets that we could afford, and then we found 3 holdout markets that are similar size and geo and are actually excluding those. So we wanted to see brand lift. We want to see what kind of ad recall we can get, and then what type of sales increase do we see above and beyond what those geolocations or DMAs are doing traditionally. And so we can actually see and validate this creative, so then we can distribute it more nationally, but it's so hard to find those insights through the noise if you just kind of put it out on your standard channel. So that's the way we're doing it. We did a brand lift study ahead of time to kind of see who knew about Kizik ahead of time in those markets. We had like 1 person out of 1,300 people, so pretty low awareness. And so now we know what's going to be the % lift that we see in 12 weeks, and then we'll measure and do the same thing. So, getting a thumbs up. That was a good answer, or you were done?
Both.
Thanks, guys.